you go. Let's start. So I guess this is the time to start our fifth or sixth AMA call with our guest speaker, Auryn Macmillan of CLR Fund. Before I give the stage to Auryn, I want to introduce the folks that I know. And others, if you want to introduce yourself, feel free to do that quickly. Adam and Philip are our co-founders of BrightID, and we are happy to have them here. Auryn is the founder of CLR Fund, as I said. Carlos and myself are and Burn Signal, and I guess a list of other projects that will take the whole hour if you want to mention all of them. Auryn and myself are the community managers of BrightID. Jorin, Ashraf, and Raid Hassan are the BrightID stars. Jim is my friend from the RC group. And I'm thinking, oh, Erica. Erica is our ambassador in China. He started BrightID World in China, and she's here, not on video though. And I think I have never met Typo before, but I think he's from the Meta Cartel. He has the vibe. And others, if you want to introduce yourself, let's do that quickly. Otherwise, I'm going to pass the stage to Auryn. Okay, we're cool. Auryn, please.
All righty. It's great to see a bunch of familiar and a bunch of new faces. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on the call. I guess I'm not quite sure where to jump in. I didn't prepare like a presentation. I'm just gonna kind of chat at you guys for a little bit and then go for a bit of a kind of product demo, I guess, through CLR Fund, and hopefully answer some questions if folks have some questions. And an ideal case is we can go through and actually get some people to try it out. For me, this is a great opportunity to get some kind of IRL feedback from people who haven't seen it, haven't laid eyes on it, maybe don't know what it is or don't know how to what it's intended to do. So this is a great opportunity to get some really quality feedback for me and hopefully introduce you guys to something really cool. So at a high level, what CLR Fund is a fund allocation mechanism for the Ethereum ecosystem. It's a protocol for kind of efficiently allocating funds to Ethereum's public goods. It strives for credible neutrality, decentralization, permissionlessness, trustlessness, and pseudonymy. And essentially it works, it allocates funds via the quadratic funding mechanism. So if any of you are familiar with Gitcoin grants, you're already familiar with quadratic funding. If you're not, I totally recommend looking up the quadratic funding paper, and actually the folks from Gitcoin made a really nice little web page that is, I think it was QFWTF. I'm just going to quickly try to pull that up. But it's a great little explainer of kind of what quadratic funding is and kind of how it works. At a high level, what quadratic funding is a way of allocating kind of a pot of funding to a group of recipients based on the inputs of a kind of larger group of contributors. So you have, say, a $1,000 matching pool, and then a handful of people that contribute directly to a group of recipients. The way that you allocate the matching pool is determined by the kind of quadratic vote weight, or the square root of the amount of funding that each individual contributes to all of the other projects, or I should say the sum of square roots. Nevertheless, that's probably getting a bit too in the weeds this early on. So yeah, we'll kind of step back a little bit and talk about kind of what we've tried to build with CLR Fund and how it ties into BrightID. So essentially, for quadratic funding to work as intended, it requires a really strong Sybil resistance. Every contributor has to be, you have to be reasonably certain that every contributor in the system is a unique individual. Otherwise, it essentially breaks the quadratic funding formula. if you're able to split your contributions up through multiple accounts, then you can get a disproportionate vote weight. So the kind of solution to Sybil resistance that we kind of as a group thought was most mature and most robust for this use case, without compromising on the values that I talked about earlier, in particular kind of credible neutrality, pseudonymity, and permissionlessness. The solution that we found was best for that is BrightID. And so what we do is we have a contract that acts as like a sign-up gatekeeper to contributing to a round, or contributing to the projects in a round. And BrightID is essentially the kind of filter on that sign-up gatekeeper. And actually, the registry contract that acts as that gatekeeper was written by one of the BrightID team as part of a bounty, which was really awesome. So that was Marty helped us get set up on that, which we were really helpful, really thankful for. So in terms of what BrightID tries to achieve, so I talked about these kind of like high level goals or kind of values. The other thing that it tries to achieve is essentially a fund allocation mechanism that would be like a valid candidate to receive things like protocol level funding. So the one kind of example of that would be things like block reward funding. That's been a really contentious topic. It is not something that we're kind of actively pursuing right now, but it's something that, you know, like that's, I guess, like the bar that we set. We said, like, if we can make something that would be valid for this, would be a viable recipient of block reward funding, then it should be a viable recipient for just about any other source of funding. So we set this kind of high bar, and one of the key kind of objections that comes up whenever you talk about block rewards funding for anything that's not miners or stakers is essentially like, how do you choose who gets to allocate this? Who gets to allocate the funding? Or who gets to kind of make the choice? And so from our point of view, we said, well, basically you want to have a scenario where you're not trying to kind of arbitrarily pick stakeholders that get to make this decision, or having to kind of elect some group of people. It should be kind of anyone who self-identifies as part of the Ethereum community. And really the only way to kind of effectively measure that is through holding Ether. So that's our measure of you know, your input or your kind of ability to claim that you're part of the Ethereum community is essentially if you hold Ether. The reason that we landed on quadratic funding as the way to do this is because it kind of limits the impact of plutocracy. So if this was just a purely Ether balance weighted vote, then it would be entirely plutocratic, which is probably not the optimal way to go about making decisions for public goods. The mathematically optimal way to do it is through quadratic funding, where your input into the system, your vote weight, is the square root of the amount of funding that you contribute. So you have this kind of diminishing returns on contributing more funding in terms of its ability to actually sway the vote in how the rest of the funds are allocated. I mentioned before the kind of Sybil problem, which BrightID solves for us. The other problem that we have is essentially collusion and bribery. So even if you solve for Sybil protection, you still have this issue where I may not be able to spin up a whole bunch of different accounts that I control myself, but I could convince other people to vote in my favor if I can know how they vote. And so this is a really sticky problem to solve, especially in the context of a public blockchain where all of the inputs are presumably public. So we benefited from some research and development that's been happening over the last year and a half into a project called MACI, the Minimal Anti-Collusion Infrastructure. And that is using zero-knowledge proofs to essentially allow for secret inputs on-chain, and then a secret computation to create a proof for how the funding should be allocated. So you can see funds go into the round from every address, but you can't see which projects they actually allocate their funding to. The ZK snark computation runs, and it spits out the vote tally, the way that the funding should be allocated, but you can't see any of the kind of computation that went into it. So that kind of breakthrough has now allowed us to have this really robust system where we can have both Sybil resistance through BrightID and then collusion resistance and bribery resistance through Macy. And yeah, that's essentially the real kind of core pieces to ClearFund. The last piece of the puzzle that we've kind of added is a curation mechanism. So like the other kind of really obvious attack for a system like ClearFund is to essentially spam the recipient list. So we've had to add a curation mechanism for the people or the projects or recipients. They're allowed to receive funding through this mechanism. And for that, we're using a token curated registry courtesy of CLR. So I won't dive in too much into how TCRs work, but as I guess at a high level, it's essentially just a list. And in order to put something on the list, you have to put up a bond. And then if someone objects to that thing being added, they have to put up a bond. And then there's a CLR court, a decentralized court that arbitrates the decision on whether or not it should be added to the list based on the criteria that you created for the list. And then that whoever loses the outcome basically pays the arbitrator. So yeah, really kind of simple overview. So that combination of those, I guess, three pieces now in Macy for collusion resistance, BrightID for Sybil resistance, and CLR for recipient curation is what has now given us this kind of complete package that we think is a really robust solution to on-chain public goods fund allocation. And so with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this link here. It's just clr.fund in the chat. And I'll try sharing my screen. Pazla, you might need to enable that for me. And I can just kind of poke around and show you guys what the application actually looks like. And I guess in the meantime, if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to just freestyle here and yeah, start answering questions or anything like that.
I have a question, Auryn. So I've heard you and other people say that quadratic funding is like the mathematically optimal way to do this. What makes y'all think that?
The paper that Glenn Weil, Vitalik Buterin, and Zoe, I can't remember her last name, authored a while back. That's essentially the claim that they make. I am not well versed enough to actually properly assess the claim, but there are a few people that I trust pretty well to make that judgment. So yeah, that's kind of their claim, is that essentially the quadratic formula there is the mathematically optimal way. I'll find the paper so you guys can check it out.
Yeah, and I think I read it, a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Way back before I actually had ever played with these things. It's sort of, I wonder, in another project, we started off with the square root of something and then realized later that actually there was a more optimal factor to use. Like it wasn't a square root, it was, to the factor of 1.25 we thought would be better. So, but I've heard you and other people be like, oh yeah, this is mathematically. I'm like, really? Have y'all explored the other like slightly different variations of that concept?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't personally, but these guys have I guess run. I'm not sure if it was in relation to this specific paper or another one, but in conversations with Glenn in the past and some of his colleagues, they had kind of expressed that yes, they've actually done kind of modeling with different factors. And found this one to be the thing that kind of optimizes best for this specific use case. But again, it's a little bit beyond my my, I guess, expertise.
Yeah, and I can't read the formulas in that paper. So like I can only, I sort of have to trust them like, okay, you wrote a lot of nice looking squiggles.
Yeah.
You must be smart. And you're wearing glasses, so.
Totally. I think I have the ability to share screen now. So here we go. I guess I can expand a little bit. So I guess just before we do that, this is the paper that I was just referencing here. I dropped a link to it in chat so you guys can check it out. Yeah, we can go check out the app. So we have a funding round running right now. We are on XDAI. So all of the funding happens in wrapped XDAI, which is kind of a weird journey to get there for some people, kind of migrating DAI from mainnet to XDAI and then taking your XDAI on XDAI and wrapping it into wrapped XDAI. The reason being that we deal with ERC20 tokens, and XDAI on the XDAI network is the equivalent of Ether on the Ethereum network, or ED on ID chain. So anyway, yeah, we've got this funding round running. This round have roughly $2,000 in the matching pool, and we've had so far about $250 worth of contributions. These aren't kind of mind-blowing numbers. We've gone through a very deliberately slow scaling process as we test all of the features. So this one is round 3. It's 0 index, so this is actually our 4th round. The first 3 were essentially testing the kind of various components that we just went through. So the first round, round 0, was really just testing the kind of core of ClearFund. Round 1 was the core of ClearFund plus BrightID, I believe. And then round 2 was ClearFund, BrightID, and Claros, and then round 3 was a kind of more trustless version of it. I should say the 3rd round, which was round 2, and then this round now has kind of all of the pieces in place, and so we've doubled the matching pool. It started at 1,000 DAI for the first few rounds, and now has been increased to 2,000, and we're hoping to do that every round for the kind of next few rounds. Until we can deploy to a layer 2 solution that has kind of trust assumptions more similar to mainnet, to probably an optimistic rollup like Arbitrum or Optimism. Anyway, so the way the app works is you have a list of projects here that are all have been kind of submitted through our TCR. I'll just quickly open up our TCR here. So if anyone wants to add a project, you basically swing by here and drop the project in. It's on mainnet, not XDAI, so I can't click that button just now. But yeah, you'll essentially just permissionlessly add it. You have to put down a bond and hope that no one challenges it. If you do want to put something down, please make sure to check out the listing policies here. And that will also lead you through to the ClearFund Constitution. This document here is what the Claros Court will base its arbitration decisions on. So if your submission doesn't meet these criteria, and someone challenges it, then it will get removed and you'll lose your bond. And so this is kind of our spam protection for recipients. Anyway, I've already contributed to the round, so I can kind of add projects here, but I can't actually allocate any funding because I already did, and I actually did it from a different machine. But I can probably show you here if I switch to an address. The first part of this, the only issue is that there we go. The only issue is that this one is not BrightID verified, and as intended, I can't verify another account since my other one is already verified. So I'm a little bit limited in how much I can show you kind of in the interface just because I've already contributed. But yeah, essentially, it should be a pretty Gitcoin-like experience where you jump in, browse the projects or find the kind of projects that you like and add them to your cart, select how much XDAI you want to allocate to each project, hit the contribute button, and that'll basically fire up a string of transactions. Once your BrightID verified, a string of transactions that are things like approve the funds, send the funds, and then submit your message that is your vote. After the fact, you can come back and change your weighting, like change how you allocate the funding, but you can't actually add more funds to the round. So you kind of need to know upfront how much you want to contribute total, and then after the fact, if you want to come and change your weightings, you can always do that. Yeah, that's basically ClearFund in a nutshell. There's not a whole lot else for us to kind of dive through in the UI. We've tried to keep it deliberately quite simple and hopefully approachable. So maybe what we can get into now is the connection party, if you guys want to do that, and then if anyone has any other questions on ClearFund, or if anyone wants to dive in and give it a try, if you want to share your screen and dive in and give it a try, then we can kind of help you through any issues. And again, I would love to just get feedback from anyone here on the application, on the protocol, on life in general, whatever you guys want to talk about.
Postlar, did you want to do the question and answer first, or did you want to do the verifications, or the connections first?
I think it's a better idea to do the questions first.
Yeah, so that way we can keep the recording going, because
Yes.
I think the people watching on YouTube will want to see the answers to the question. They won't want to see the connection making part. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, do you think it's good to showcase the process? Because I haven't made the donation yet, and if you want, I can just do the clicks and be done with it.
And you've got some XDAI, right?
Yeah, I have only 3 wrap XDAI, but that's enough to just.
Yeah, that's more.
Yeah, I've only got 6. I need to get some more.
So this is yeah, Carlos, if you're comfortable doing that, that would actually be really really great. And we can talk through kind of how this works in a kind of bribery or collusion scenario as well. So this gives us a good bit of fodder for that. So we can just like to set the scene here. Let's actually assume that I am bribing Carlos. I'm saying, Carlos, I'm going to watch over your shoulder. You need to share your screen so that I can see who you vote for. And this way I know that, or in theory, I know who you voted for, and so I can kind of successfully bribe you. I'm going to say, Carlos, you have to vote for ClearFund so that ClearFund gets more money. And in this scenario, to this point, it probably looks like, yes, I can be successful in this bribe. But we'll let Carlos go through it. Maybe Carlos, if you can talk through any things that don't make sense to you or anything like that, that would be really helpful.
Well, I have tried already, so this actually makes sense. But yeah, I could probably say what you do. Just let's say I have everything, so I'm going to donate everything to ClearFund. Yeah, that's the case. No, that was your what you were telling.
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, this is my fee. I think I can edit this. Yeah, just one.
And that
for this.
His account's already verified.
Yeah, my account. Yeah, it's my account. I already did it for the last round, so I don't need to just.
But just for folks that have not done it before, there will be an additional step that you'll do where you scan a QR. It'll pop up a QR code. You'll scan that with your BrightID. You'll link the application. It's usually a pretty simple process, but just know that you will have to do that. But only the first time you interact.
Yeah, just that one time, and then after that you're verified. So now Carlos has gone through, contributed his wrapped XDAI, and me as a briber, I'm satisfied that he's voted, and so now I go and pay Carlos his bribe. What I don't realize as a briber is that Carlos, during this window of time, can actually go back and reallocate his funding. So before you approve that transaction, maybe just cancel it, and you say, I actually don't want to contribute to ClearFund. I really wanted to contribute to BrightID and WhaleDAO. So you can delete ClearFund out of the cart, and you can contribute to the projects that you actually care about. And in kind of whatever ratio you like. And me as the person bribing you, I have no way to prove that you changed your vote. And so,
Awesome.
Auryn, one question. They will be able to see that you performed a transaction from this account to the contract, the ClearFund contract. Right?
yes, they can see that you sent another message. And so if I'm kind of a smarter briber, I would probably say you are not allowed to send any more messages. Like after you send your first one here, then you can't interact with that contract again. The UI doesn't enable it yet, but the contracts actually enable those messages to be sent by any address. And so if this was a real life bribery scenario, what college could do is say, come to the ClearFund team or kind of anyone that's familiar with Macy and essentially sign the message that is their vote, and then have someone else submit that message to the contract. So then me as a briber, I have no way to connect the message that he sent, the encrypted message that he sent in a transaction from another unrelated address. And I imagine in future, especially once we're on to a roll-up solution, what we'll probably build in is some kind of a relayer. So there's legitimately no way to tell kind of, or to pair up a message with a contributor address.
Nice.
Awesome. I'm going to stop then sharing now the screen.
All right, my next question is, and I know you guys are thinking a lot about this, is how are these things going to be ordered on my screen in the future? Because right now it's not that many, but when it's 100 projects.
Yeah, so kind of curation is a really, I guess, interesting problem for something like this that is intended to be kind of fully decentralized. The things that we are thinking about at the moment, from the contract side, we think we have kind of adequate curation in that you have to meet specific criteria to be eligible to be a recipient. But we don't want the TCR to filter for kind of quality. The TCR is essentially binary. It's either you meet these criteria or you don't. And it should be up to other curation mechanisms to assess the quality and try to kind of factor that into how they display. We will probably have introduced some kind of sorting options for things like the amount of funding received in previous rounds for projects that have been there for multiple rounds. So like sort by previous funding that they've received, sort by kind of newest added, things like that. I guess would be comparable to say like the sorting options in something like Reddit. The other thing that we've been toying with is something similar to like collections on Gitcoin or to token lists on Uniswap, where you essentially allow third parties to curate lists of recipients and then give users the option to select the recipient lists, like the curated lists from parties that they trust. And those lists may include, they would kind of filter the total list along with giving with kind of custom sorting options for those lists. I think those are the two kind of primary ways that we're thinking about kind of adding that second layer of curation, kind of social curation to these to the project list here. The others that we've kind of explored are things like voting, upvoting, and downvoting and stuff like that. But I think that's really difficult to achieve in a static website. So we are probably leaning more towards kind of list or collection-based curation for the time being. So Jim asked, how does someone get wrapped XDAI? The easiest place to go for that is a website that Radial built called WrapETH, or to HoneySwap. So if you guys have used Xtidal for something, you probably ended up on HoneySwap at some point. But if either of these works fine, if you have Xti, then on WrapETH, you can just jump in there and kind of hit one button to wrap it into wrapped Xti. If you're on HoneySwap, you would basically just swap Xti for wrapped Xti, and in that case, it doesn't actually swap it; it just wraps it. And when I say wrap, what it's doing is just sending the Xti to a contract that conforms with the ERC20 standard, and then that ERC20 standard increases your balance of that. Sorry, that ERC20 token increases your balance of the token anytime it receives Ether from you or Xti from you. It's the same contract as is used for wrapped Ether on mainnet. And likely an improvement that will happen in a couple of weeks is basically obfuscation of the fact that this is using wrapped Xti. So more than likely what it will do is just all of the interface will say Xti, and when you contribute, it's just going to wrap the Xti for you. So that'll be kind of one less step for contributors to have to deal with.
Auryn, since you guys are going to be dealing with a lot of this asset, I'm encouraging everyone in the world that we should call it Wexti.
Wexti. I'm down
instead
for
of
it.
wrapped Xti, because it's just, I don't know, it sounds cooler and it's shorter, and everyone calls it WETH anyway. I just heard you say wrapped Ether, but most people don't say wrapped Ether.
Yeah.
So everyone can make their own choices, but I call it Wexti. And
Yeah, I like Wexti.
Cool.
I'll happily adopt that. It's a few less syllables.
So I had a question about the choice of I guess default asset, because maybe it doesn't need to be. I mean, right now it makes a lot of sense to use Xti as the default asset that you're contributing. I think about Gitcoin, where you can pick whatever you want to donate. When ClearFund moves to Optimism, and it no longer has ties to Xti chain. Do we foresee using like just allowing whatever token people want to contribute? Are we going to push towards a specific token, or how do you see that?
So I mean, the ClearFund contracts have a native asset, so they kind of deal with one ERC20 token. It can be changed by whoever the owner is, but for simplicity of the contract, it deals with one token. So like any instance of ClearFund needs to choose what native token it's going to use.
Yeah.
That said, I'm a very big fan of the kind of pattern where you let people pay in whatever token they want and just swap it behind the scenes. So there's no reason, particularly on a sidechain or a layer 2, there's no reason that we can't use that pattern where if you come along and you've got the round is in DAI, but you've got Ether, or you've got any other kind of token, then it just there's no reason it can't just route it through Uniswap, swap it out for you, and then send that the resulting kind of swapped DAI to the contract. There's been kind of attempts at doing that on mainnet, and the gas cost is astronomical.
Exactly.
I know Augur did that with Augur V2, and they copped a bit of flack for kind of creating this user experience that in theory was awesome and in practice was too expensive to use.
Oh man!
I think, putting once these things are in an environment where gas costs aren't an issue, then that whole world of better user experience or kind of more flexible user experience opens up. Actually, I just want to go back quickly to the curation topic.
Sure.
One other kind of level of curation that we've talked a lot about is essentially creating this fractalized system of ClearFund instances. So the hope is that eventually we get to the point where like the canonical instance, the top level instance of ClearFund is not funding projects directly, but instead allocating funding to other instances of ClearFund or other fund allocation mechanisms that effectively act as kind of categories. So someone might come to the top level one and say, you know, like, I want to allocate funding to, I want to help allocate funding to X, Y, and Z categories of things. You know, I want to allocate things to funding to public goods, kind of media, Ethereum public goods, media projects, and to the core clients for the network. You know, those are the two things that I want to allocate funding to, but I don't know how to assess, you know, which of you know, Geth, Open Ethereum, Turbo Geth, and Nethermind, you know, is best. So I'm just going to allocate it to this category, which is another instance of ClearFund, and then that instance will handle the kind of allocation to individual projects. And so yeah, that's the kind of other layer of curation that we hope to get to eventually, which is just kicking the can down the road a little further.
Sorry.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Oh, I had, so like one of the main things that I find really attractive about ClearFund and about the whole idea is that it allows anonymous voters. So, which is like, we all love, like a lot of us here love Gitcoin and have used it, and Gitcoin's great. But one of the key differentiators between ClearFund and Gitcoin is that you can be an anonymous contributor. And that's, I think that my feeling is that there are whales that are kind of like just waiting on the sidelines to donate to some of these public goods, and would feel more comfortable joining a platform like ClearFund than they would something like Gitcoin. That's not really a question. That's more of a comment, because I, you know, as you know, I was part of the hackathon team that worked on the initial version of ClearFund, but that was one of the things that attracted me to the project. But what are, just for the benefit of other people, what are some of the other like differentiators? Because like Gitcoin is familiar to a lot of us. We love Gitcoin. So what are some some other things that we can that we do that ClearFund does differently than Gitcoin?
Yeah, well, I mean, let me riff on that first point a little bit. You're kind of spot on there. That, like, I think that there is several kind of classes of potential contributors, both to projects and to the matching pool, that are probably not comfortable or able to contribute via Gitcoin right now. One of those being things like protocol level rewards. And so that's not just block rewards funding, that's also things like miner extractable value from layer 2 networks or layer 2 fees. Or you have things like Whaler DAO, which are trying to create DeFi protocols that feed portions of profits back through to funding public goods. And so like projects like those or systems like those, and then people, say, you know, someone who wants to remain fully anonymous, or someone who wants to, you know, someone who's unable to meet the KYC requirements for being kind of a large scale contributor, or unwilling to meet the KYC requirements for being a large scale contributor to Gitcoin. Those kinds of contributors who we're hoping to be able to kind of uniquely serve by creating a fund allocation protocol rather than a business that is kind of running this as a service for the Ethereum ecosystem. I'd say like the other kind of key differentiators are just like the trust model. So Gitcoin has made some really fantastic strides in improving the trust model. So a lot of credit to them. They really have been fantastic in that. The last round, or actually I guess the last few rounds, they've had a multi-sig of several kind of trusted community members that have actually held onto the bulk of the funds. And in particularly this last round, they set it up so that you could kind of approve funds to the multi-sig after you see what the results are, as opposed to beforehand. And so the neat thing with that is that you're not kind of putting funds into the hands of a relatively small collection of people prior to knowing whether or not the round actually ran as intended. The Gitcoin's been really great about doing kind of post-round analysis and sharing that analysis with the community, which has been really great. And that's been their kind of primary defense mechanism against Sybil attacks, particularly in their then ability to kind of iterate round after round to improve their Sybil resistance. BrightID kind of differs, ClearFund differs quite a bit because we don't have access to the same information by design. The way that ClearFund works is the information is encrypted, and there's one trusted party in the system, the coordinator, who has kind of unrestricted access. But the assumption is that the coordinator basically doesn't look at it, and then is kind of this incorruptible actor within the system. And so we won't have the same kind of ability to, at least kind of once we reach a larger scale, won't have the same kind of ability to analyze the data between rounds, or analyze that, create like a network of like visualizations of the nodes and edges in the network in the same way that Gitcoin has done. And so we've had to be much more upfront, or like front load a lot of the protections, which is the reason again for having kind of really strong Sybil resistance up front, as opposed to Gitcoin, who was able to start with aged GitHub accounts as the Sybil resistance, and then add in text verification, to give you a little bit of additional vote weight, and then add in BrightID as a way to give you a little bit more vote weight. We have to kind of have really strong protections from the get-go in order to keep the system robust, which I think is the really the kind of key differentiator there. And then the other part of it is just it's a kind of totally permissionless system. Once it's kind of up and running, there's not really any parties that can stop you from being a contributor if your if your BrightID account is verified, essentially. The coordinator can't censor your messages. No one can know who you voted for. So it's a kind of truly permissionless system then.
Auryn, I'll also put in that, Gitcoin now does KYC for the recipients of the grants. If you get more than like $5,000, you have to provide your tax ID number and stuff like that. And there were some people and organizations that were really upset about that. So obviously ClearFund doesn't do that.
Yeah, and I mean that's going to be a really interesting thing for us to navigate. But we're trying to make sure that we set the system up in such a way that it is sufficiently decentralized. We don't have any meaningful control over it. So it should be able to operate as a kind of decentralized protocol that's allocating funds, as opposed to a business or an organization that's allocating funds.
Wow, cool. Postler, are we getting close to time? Because I know that we have a hard stop at 12, and because we've got another meeting right after this. Yeah. So is it time to do the connection party? Do you want to?
Sure, we can do that. If no one has any other questions, or we want to stop recording. I want to thank.
Do we have time for one more question, or do we not have time?
I guess we could have 2 or 3 more minutes for questions.
Okay, so we do have time.
Start. Yes. So does anyone want to ask Auryn another question?
I just wanted to said, Auryn, that it's very interesting. I need a lot to learn about it. Sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, cheers. I guess I'll just take the opportunity just to say thanks to everyone for showing up and listening to me ramble. If you do get a chance to go and give ClearFund a try, again, we'd be really appreciative for any feedback. Otherwise, just thanks for being a part of the Ethereum community and the BrightID community. It's really great to see a whole bunch of faces here trying to help push this whole ecosystem forward.
Yeah, so since I didn't see anyone raise their hand, there is one question. We won't get time to like discuss this fully, but something that's always interesting is to think about like who or what should be the validator. And I know we've had discussions that in the future it could be a DAO. We talked about we want it to be someone who's incorruptible and totally aligned with Ethereum public good. So we've talked about Vitalik being the validator. That would be someone who, you know, if he's going to sabotage Ethereum public goods, then I guess we're really in trouble. So he would be someone that you could trust to run the validator for that.
Yeah, so just for disambiguations, when you're saying validator, I'm assuming you're meaning the coordinator.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm using the wrong word. Yeah, I've been thinking too much about side chains recently.
Yeah,
sorry.
totally.
Yeah.
So this is a kind of known weakness in ClearFund and in Macy currently, is that you do have this kind of single point of trust, a coordinator who can know the state of the votes, can know how everyone allocated their funds, and so you need to find a coordinator who the community, the ecosystem largely believes is incorruptible. You know, someone who has enough of a stake in the ecosystem as a whole that it's not worth it to them to accept a bribe to modify or to at least to kind of give up information. The other approach to that may be viable but puts some different trust assumptions on it is to essentially run the coordinator in a trusted execution environment.
Mm-hmm.
Or perhaps a network of trusted execution environments. So the secret network, formerly Enigma, has pioneered some work in that, where I think their trusted execution environments rely on, I think at one point they relied on Amazon's service for that. I forget what it's called, Nitro, I think. But now I believe it's you just have to have a particular chipset in your computer, the kind of Intel trusted execution environment. If you have that, then you should be able to kind of run their node software. So something like that is probably something that we'll explore in the future. You know, a way of running it inside of a trusted execution environment, so that in theory no one can know what it is. But again, that's a different set of trust assumptions. At that point, the trust assumption is in the soundness of that trusted execution environment, as opposed to the incorruptibility of this coordinator.
Right. Something that Trustlines does that's interesting is they actually, because they have some secret information. It's a similar type of situation that they're in for a part of verifying their validator nodes. But what they do is they have a legal entity that is legally bound not to disclose anything. And if any of that information gets leaked, they could get sued. So they have strong incentives. It's basically this third party that has a really strong incentive not to allow any of that information to get out. But the coordinator also could potentially maybe hide the fact that they're accepting a bribe or something like that. So maybe that's not viable for this.
Yeah,
isn't that true? Like it's not like everyone. If the coordinator was a bad actor, it wouldn't immediately be apparent to everybody. They might be able to hide the fact that they're doing something shady. Is that true?
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Auryn. Thank you, everyone, for the lovely questions. I learned a lot about ClearFund. I was always pitching it to everyone in the connection parties, but now I learned that I was way off, and it was just. But yeah, I tried. Cool. I'm gonna stop recording by thanking everyone, and